The city of London never truly sleeps, but at 2:47 a.m., it holds its breath. That's when Ryan Miller found himself standing at a desolate bus stop, the city lights painting long, distorted shadows on the wet pavement. He'd missed the last train, his phone was dead, and a bone-chilling drizzle had started. That's when he saw it, an old double-decker bus, its paint faded and peeling, rumbled into view. The destination board was blank, but the number glowing on the front was a single, stark digit, 0, bus 0. Ryan had lived in London his whole life. He'd never heard of a bus 0, but it was a ride, and he was desperate. He flagged it down. The doors hissed open with a sound like a dying breath, revealing an interior bathed in a sickly yellow light. The driver sat hunched over the wheel, his face obscured by the brim of a worn cap. Ryan fumbled for his wallet, but the driver just nodded towards the empty seats, a gesture that felt less like an invitation and more like a command. A strange detail caught Ryan's as he passed. The driver's lips were stitched shut with coarse black thread. A shiver, colder than the rain, traced its way down his spine. He quickly found a seat on the lower deck, trying to ignore the prickling sensation on his skin. The bus pulled away from the curb with a lurch, not following any route Ryan recognized. It veered into alleyways that shouldn't have been there and turned onto streets that didn't exist on any map. Outside the windows, the familiar London cityscape began to melt away, replaced by a thick, swirling fog that swallowed the world whole. The only sounds were the groaning engine and a faint, rhythmic tapping that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. He glanced at the other passengers. There were only a few, scattered like forgotten dolls. A woman in a vintage dress stared out the window with unseeing eyes, a single tear frozen on her cheek. An elderly man in a tattered suit clutched a briefcase, his knuckles white, his gaze fixed on the floor. A young boy sat alone, humming a tuneless, discordant melody. None of them moved, none of them blinked. They all shared the same vacant, hollow expression, as if they were merely shells of people, their souls left behind somewhere in the fog. Ryan's heart hammered against his ribs. This wasn't a bus, it was a cage. He tried to stand, to shout, but his limbs felt heavy as lead, and his voice was trapped in his throat. Panic clawed at him. The tapping grew louder, more insistent, a frantic Morse code spelling out his doom. The bus continued its journey into the heart of the fog, into a world without time or place. The air grew thick with the smell of damp earth and decay, like an open grave. Ryan felt a profound sense of loss, a sorrow so deep it felt like it was pulling him apart. He looked at the boy again. This time, the child turned his head slowly, and his eyes, to dark, empty pits, locked onto Ryan's. He smiled, a natural grin, and pointed a thin finger towards the front of the bus. Ryan's gaze followed, landing on the driver's rearview mirror. But it wasn't the road behind them that he saw, it was a reflection of his own seat. Only now, someone else was sitting beside him. A gaunt figure in a dark cloak, its face hidden in shadow, its hand resting lightly on his shoulder. An icy cold spread from the point of contact, seeping into his very bones. Ryan squeezed his eyes shut, a desperate, silent scream tearing through his mind. He didn't want to see what was under that hood. He didn't want to know. The tapping sound was deafening now, inside his head, counting down his final seconds. He felt the bus slow to a stop. The hissing sound of the doors opening was the last thing he heard before a crushing weight descended upon him, and everything went black. He woke with a violent gasp, sprawled on the cold bench of the bus stop. It was dawn. The first rays of sun were cutting through the morning mist, and the familiar sounds of London traffic were starting to build. Was it all a nightmare, a hallucination brought on by exhaustion and stress? His body ached, and his clothes were still damp from the rain. He felt a strange burning sensation on the back of his right hand. He looked down and saw it. Stamped onto his skin, like a permanent tattoo, was a single, black digit, 0. His blood ran cold. It was real. A week passed in a blur of anxiety and sleepless nights. The number on his hand wouldn't fade. He was a ghost in his own life, haunted by the memory of the fog and the hollow-eyed passengers. One afternoon, hoping for some distraction, he found himself in a local library, browsing through old microfilms of newspapers. He wasn't sure what he was looking for, just something to anchor him back to reality. He scrolled through the archives from the 1990s, the years of his childhood. Then, A headline from a local paper dated October 23, 1997, caught his eye. He zoomed in, his breath catching in his throat. It was a missing person report. Underneath the grainy black and white photo was a name that made his world collapse. Ryan Miller, age 10, last seen waiting for a bus late at night. The boy in the photo was him, and next to the photo was a small, chilling detail from the police report. A strange, hand-drawn circle, a 0, found scrawled on the bench where he was last seen. Ryan stared at the image, at his own young face staring back at him from across time. He realized then that he hadn't escaped the bus. He was just another passenger, waiting for bus 0 to come back and finish the journey it started all those years ago. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more chilling tales.